I just want to walk you through a couple different things that I've sort of been working through in my own life over the last week or so. The first one is going to be an article, and actually this is brand spanking new, hot off the press today. This is a picture from Yahoo through the AP, through the Associated Press, and of course this is in Afghanistan, and this is actually not the only place this is taking place, but of course the Muslim world right now is up in arms right now over the crazy pastor down in Florida who has finally decided that he's going to hold true to his word since 9/11 of this past year and burn the Quran, which he did on March 20th. I don't know if you knew that. If you knew that, put your hand up. If you knew that he burned it on the 20th. All right, so again, not all of you, okay? And so this is one of those things I just want you to be aware of. And on the world stage, this is what you, yes, you, as a Christian, looks like. This is what people think of you because of a man in Florida, okay? I want you to know that. The next one is our buddy Fred Phelps of Westboro Baptist Church, Baptist, so it says Baptist in its name, so that means, guess what? You're just like this crazy guy. All right, these guys are the anti-gay, anti-everything. They picket everybody's funeral. When that little girl just got shot up in Arizona, right? Actually, it was Dallas Green's granddaughter. For those of you who aren't sports fans, he was the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. Anyway, and so, yeah, I knew you'd laugh. And so again, right, they picket funerals, yippee-ki-yay, and tell everybody that God hates them. And they're Baptist, and so are you. And so this is how people in your country think of you. The next thing that we're going to look at, and as we're getting this up, I just want to, let me sort of preface before we start this. This is straight from MSNBC, and this is a video interview done just recently by a pastor out of Michigan, Dearborn, Michigan. His name is Rob Bell. Some of you who have been in small group with me before know I absolutely love this guy. And so we'll see what Pastor Rob Bell has to say. I want to also tell you that as of the year 2005, this guy had one of the biggest mega churches in the country. At that point, he was averaging 10,000 congregants on his physical campus on a Sunday morning. Not to mention the books that he's written and the podcasts that people listen to weekly. This is how much that this gentleman is influencing the Christian world right now. And he just came out with his brand new book called Love Wins, that Christians will go out and buy because, well, God is love. And if we want love to win, well, it sure sounds good. He's a big-time pastor, and he's written another book. And so let's hear what Pastor Rob Bell has to say.
One megachurch pastor has ignited a theological firestorm by suggesting that our response to the Christian message in this life will not necessarily determine our eternal destiny. In his book, Love Wins, Heaven, Hell, and the Fate of Every Person Who Ever Lived, Rob Bell says that ultimately all people will be saved, even those who've rejected the claims of Christianity. He argues people will eventually be persuaded by God's love, post-mortem, in the life to come. And Pastor Rob Bell joins us now. Good afternoon, sir. Before we come to talk about the book, just help us with this tragedy in Japan. Which of these is true? Either God is all-powerful, but he doesn't care about the people of Japan and therefore they're suffering, or he does care about the people of Japan, but he's not all-powerful. Which one is it?
I begin with the belief that God, when we shed a tear, God sheds a tear. So I begin with a divine being who is profoundly empathetic, compassionate, and stands in solidarity with us. Secondly, the dominant story of the Scriptures is about restoration, it's about renewal, it's about rebirth, it's about a God who insists in the midst of this chaos, the last word hasn't been spoken. And so people of faith have clung to this promise and this hope that God will essentially fix this place. And it's a beautiful hope, and I think we ought to keep it front and center, especially right now.
So which of those is true? He's all-powerful and he cares, or he cares and is not all-powerful?
I think that this is a paradox at the heart of the divine, and some paradoxes are best left exactly as they are.
Okay. This book you've written has been stirring some controversy because the implication is, as you put it, God's love will eventually melt hearts. That's what you say in the book. So are you a universalist who believes that everyone can go to heaven regardless of how they respond to Christ on earth?
In regards to the question, are you a universalist, I would say first and foremost, no. And that is a perspective within the Christian stream. There has been, within the Christian tradition, a number of people who have said, given enough time, God will win everybody over. One of the things in the book I'm very clear on and want people to see is that this tradition has all of these different opinions. Everybody will be won over. Some will continue to resist God's love. And that Christians have disagreed about this speculation.
I get that.
And
so is it irrelevant and is it immaterial about how one responds to Christ in this life in terms of determining one's eternal destiny? Is that immaterial?
I think it's extraordinarily important. I think it's extraordinarily important.
But in your book you said that God wins regardless in the end.
Love wins, for me, is a way of understanding that God is love, and love demands freedom.
You are asking for it both ways. That doesn't make sense. I'm asking you, is it irrelevant as to how you respond to Christ in your life now to determine your eternal destiny? Is that irrelevant? Is it immaterial?
It is terribly relevant and terribly important. Now, how exactly that works out and how exactly it works out in the future, we are now, when you die, firmly in the realm of speculation. And my experience has been that a lot of Christians have built whole dogmas about what happens when you die, and we have to be very careful that we don't build whole doctrines and dogmas on what is speculation.
I'm not talking about what happens when you die. I'm asking you how you respond here and now. And the question I'm asking you, and what you seem to be saying in this book, is that God will melt everyone's heart eventually, some even post-mortem in death. So you're the one making the speculation about the afterlife. What I'm asking is it irrelevant and immaterial about how you respond to Christ now to determine your eternal destiny? Is that relevant or irrelevant? Does it have a bearing or does it have no bearing?
I think it has tremendous bearing. It also at the same time raises all sorts of questions, and that is why the discussion is so lively and vibrant. Namely, what about people who haven't heard about Jesus? What about the woman I talked to a couple weeks ago who was abused by her pastor? And so for her, Jesus is tied up in all sorts of things, and I assume that God's grace gives people space to work those sort of issues out.
One critique of your book says this: there are dozens of problems with Love Wins. The history is inaccurate, the use of Scripture indefensible. That's true, isn't it?
No, it's not true.
So why do you choose, for example, to accept and promote the works of the early writer Origen, and not, for example, Arius, who took a view of Jesus' deity as in being not God? Why do you select one and not select the other?
Because first and foremost, I'm a pastor. And so I deal with real people in a real world asking and wrestling with these issues of faith. And what I have discovered over and over again is there are people who have questions and hunches and have sort of, I'm really struggling with this. And when you can simply give them the gift of, by the way, within the Christian tradition, there are scholars and theologians and there are other people who have had the same questions. They have had the same theories.
But you've just indicated, though, one of the problems with this book, which is, in a sense, you're creating a Christian message that's warm, kind and popular for contemporary culture, but it's frankly, according to this critic, unbiblical and historically unreliable. That's true, isn't it?
No.
What you've done is you're amending the gospel, the Christian message, so that it's palatable to contemporary people who find, for example, the idea of hell and heaven very difficult to stomach. So here comes Rob Bell. He's made a Christian gospel for you, and it's perfectly palatable. It's much easier to swallow. That's what you've done, haven't you?
No, I haven't. And there's actually an entire chapter in the book on hell. And there's an I mean, throughout the book, over and over again, our choices matter. The decisions we make about whether we extend love to others or not, the ways in which we resist or we open ourselves to God's love, these are incredibly important.
How much is this book you working out your own childhood experience of being brought up in a fairly cramped evangelical family and really finding that difficult as you became an adult? How much is this actually that?
Oh, I would totally own up to that in a heartbeat. I think we are all on a journey, and we all were handed things. You were handed things. I were handed things. This is the way the world works. This is what matters. This is what doesn't. Here's who these people are. Here's who these people are. Here's who's in. Here's who's out. We've all been handed these things, and we spend our lives sort of pushing back and questioning and probing. I think that's what makes it so engaging. It's part of the joy of life.
Pastor Rob Bell, thank you very much for joining us. And your book is called Love Wins, a book about heaven, hell, and the fate of every person who ever lived. Thank you.
Wow. One of the largest churches in the country. The pastor, by the way, that's a good excuse. I think I'm going to use that. I'm a pastor. I see so many things. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh my, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? By the way, I want to tell you, the guy, I know most of you looked at his name and thought Arabic, right? Definitely like East, maybe Indian, or he grew up in the UK. He is a Presbyterian. He is obviously saved because he made Rob Bell squirm in his seat. Maybe he needs to go be the pastor and Rob needs to go get a job at MSNBC. A palatable gospel. You know, this is what I was wrestling with all week last week, and this is what I wanted to sort of bring to you guys because, listen, as Easter is fast approaching within the next couple weeks, I really want us to have this on our heart. There's one other sort of snippet I want to mention before I sort of get into what I want to talk about, and that is there is a group presently of Christians traveling the country in caravan that say that Jesus is coming back on May 21st. So if they're right, we've got one Easter left, and that's 4 weeks from today, right? And so if I'm here the Sunday after the 21st, then maybe I missed the rapture. And if you're all here, well, then obviously I'm preaching the palatable gospel. And so again, you see all this and you're like, okay, that's great. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Listen, I got to tell you, this breaks my heart. This breaks my heart. It makes me cry knowing that there are folks that put Christian next to their name or Baptist at the edge of the sign at their church or pastor in front of their name and are leading people astray like wolves into the sheep den to slaughter folks who will hopefully one day come to meet one of us who preach the real gospel, not a palatable gospel, but they are leading them straight to hell. In Rob Bell's book, Love Wins, he basically says that the gospel doesn't matter necessarily because at the end, if God is love, and you heard him say that, then love wins every time. And I would argue that love doesn't win, love has won. Love has won. When Jesus said on the cross, it is finished, he didn't say, Rob Bell, that there is more to be written. He said it is finished. It is done. Love has won. And friends, this is what my heart has been breaking over this past week, which is why I wanted to come and present this to you. Because friends, a palatable gospel, a palatable Christianity is not what we have. I love that guy. That guy came right at him, squirming his seat. Here is a guy, by the way, if you've ever heard this guy preach, he is wonderful as far as his presence. He is an educated man. He's a good-looking dude, right? And he can talk his way out of everything. By the way, did he ever answer any of those questions? Not a one. He never answered one question. Oh, I think it's very important. But let me tell you about a lady who got, or let me tell you, really? Really? The last time I checked, sir, you have the same truth that we all carry around. You got the same sword that we all have. Why do you think it's so vital here at Emmanuel that we walk out the doors and walk back in with this? Because, friends, we need to know what this says. And by the way, sir, this word does actually talk about the afterlife. It does talk about what happens for those who do not come to know Jesus Christ. Ironically enough, Darren actually had a bookmark crazy today, right, in Revelation 21. Right? And as we sat there with the worship team, I sort of crashed this party this morning. In this verse that Darren read out of Revelation 21, it talks about every tear being wiped away, all the pain. There will be no more pain, no more suffering for those of us who know Jesus Christ. And then there's this 3-letter word in there that starts with a B. But for the liars and the cheats and the adulterers, for all those who are apart from Christ, they get thrown into the eternal lake of fire. Last time I checked, that's called hell. And so therefore, to tell people that there is no eternal destiny of either heaven or hell, that everybody is going to be in the presence of God one day because love wins, cheapens what my Jesus did on that cross. It cheapens what is about to be celebrated 4 Sundays from today, because guess what? Not only did love already win, but love won out when Jesus not only died for our sins, but rose again 3 days later, fulfilling what he said he was going to do, and he became the first resurrection. And he tells us, he promises us, like the song that Darren just sang, right, that he is coming back, and he is going to take those of us who are in his body. We are the bride of Christ, and those of us who are in faith in Christ will rise in the air with him. Are you ready? Because you know what? I got to tell you, here's why I cry out about this. Because you know what? Because of people like this, there are so many people that are being led astray from the gospel. Love is not winning because of people like this. When people see Christians picketing a little girl's funeral with signs that say God hates fags, it is bringing no one to a faith in Jesus Christ. It is embarrassing to those of us who know that love wins and is winning souls. Jesus says right here in his word that the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Listen, if 10,000 people on a Sunday morning, if all you have to do is preach a palatable gospel, friends, I will promise you we'll never get to 10,000. I don't want to get to 10,000. I would rather have what we have. People who love Jesus for real. People who really want to be Jesus and let love win daily in their lives, than have a church of 10,000 people who are leading their friends, families, and neighbors straight to the pits of hell. This is what my heart's been breaking about this week. And friends, I hope yours is breaking too. Because I also want you to know that the one comment that keeps ringing over and over and over in my head is when this guy, again, his job is to be an anchor on MSNBC. That's his job. That's what he gets paid lots of money to do. And he looks at Rob Bell and says, "Oh,